there's a fine line between beating a spot up and going back on it, right?
Yeah, there's a difference between beating a spot and going back on a hot fish and leaving her alone and coming back at the right time.
Yeah, so we knew we were gonna have another moon event.
Fucking thing on it. Oh!
All right, the McDonald and McDonald show is back. It's been a while, eh, Hunter?
It's been a while.
We haven't had too much time to get out, but now that the season's kind of winding down, we finally found some time. Then we'll break in the weather, and you might hear it on the video. We're just kind of complaining that this spot used to be a go-to for us and a lot of people. But this year, even though the weeds are really good, just hasn't really held a lot of fish. All right, so there's what Hunter got it on. That's double eights, Spanky, and no shock. Hunter's got it in black and green. Might as well just grab the fish, Hunter, and we'll worry about the bait after. It's not a monster, but you got to start somewhere, and we've moved fish on each of our 2 spots we fished, right?
Yep, third spot, third fish.
Yeah, it's a little guy. He's actually beat up, but that right there is the makings of a spotted 50-inch musky, and that's where they start, right, Hunter?
Yep.
And you know what is good? This year we're seeing a lot more smaller fish this year. That's only good for the fishery because they're reproducing well. So let's get that one back and get reset. There he goes.
There we go.
All right, that's one. We'll dig Hunter Spanky out of the net there, and we'll probably make a move here. And we'll be back with you guys in a little bit, but so far we're 1 fish on each spot, so let's just keep it rolling, Hunter.
Oh. I've been working that piece of structure a lot this year. I like it, but I haven't been seeing on it. Oh.
Jesus, I'm in pretty hot. When you start your morning and you raise fish on your first 4 spots and you catch one, it's the sign of it's going to be a good day. But it quickly changed on us after we moved our 4th fish. We knew fish were kind of using the weeds more than the rocks, so we started pounding the weeds, but we had a slight change in the weather. We had some rain come in, and we quickly realized that that bite window was so narrow around the moon set that we were gonna have to try something different. We moved around a bit, we tried some more spots, nothing really seemed to be working or moving. We tried a couple different presentations, nothing was working. So we had to make a decision. Do we make a complete change of area on the lake, go to a different basin, or do we kind of stick it out and wait for the next moon event, which in this case would be moon underfoot major in the afternoon? And in the back of Hunter's mind, he was like, we should really go back on those fish. They were very active, and there's a chance we could move one or both of them. So this next sequence of events is going to be us going back at moon underfoot major with hopes of trying to, reconnect with those 2 fish.
Oh.
Remind me when we're done here. I don't want to say in case we catch a fish on video, but I got an interesting story about guiding for you.
Okay.
I'll tell you as soon as we leave here. Oh! Kind of wrapped up, come to the front, Hunter.
Nice fish. There's a nice fish, dude. Nice job sticking with her after that.
Oh, she missed. She's off. All right. So there's a nice fish. I'm gonna give Hunter the camera here. So I just said to Hunter that this is bait I got from Josh Borofsky at the Angling Revolution. I put my little decals on there just to give it a little more color, and I added a little dangle blade, which we like to do. But the cool thing with the Angling Revolution one is that clevis in there. It makes a lot of noise. We were here earlier. We raised a nice fish here. We wanted to come back on fish because we're kind of coming back onto moon. And we seen, what, 2 fish earlier. We just went back on one.
Move that fish again.
Move that fish again. And then we come over here and I'm like, here she is. She took a good nip at it and missed it. And then spun around and I was able to stick with her. I think I kind of hooked her in the corner of the upper corner of the mouth, but she was on, and then she obviously come unhooked as soon as we hit the net. So we'll have a quick look at her here. Can I see that for 1 second?
Yep.
That's a pretty solid mid 40s.
Yeah, I would say she's 45, 46.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
You want a bumper or no?
Oh, that's fine.
Here, I'm gonna pull this one rod back. There you go.
Yeah, nice one.
Nice fish.
So we're almost at moon underfoot. We had action at moonset earlier, and we come back on these fish, and that's why it's so important to do that, to come back on some of these fish. And Hunter had just said to me, he's like, yeah, I can see the top hook hit her right here. I think she got the main hook in the corner of the mouth, and then the top one that was a little bit precarious. But Hunter had just said that it's a little bit darker, so he went to a slightly different color. He went brighter, and then I went with a slightly darker presentation just for the profile. She came in hot, eh, Hunter?
Oh, she came barreling in on that blade.
She's a little stressed from the fight, but I think we'll just give her a push here and let her go. Hunter's out here every day, and you're the one that said we should probably go back on these fish.
Yeah.
And Hunter had said to me earlier that he had a client that was like, geez, I wouldn't have thought of going back on fish all the time. There's a fine line between beating a spot up and going back on it, right?
Yeah. There's a difference between beating a spot and going back on a hot fish and leaving her alone and coming back at the right time.
Yeah, so we knew we were going to have another moon event. We got moon underfoot. We're just off of full moon. We got good weather. It's overcast. It does look like we might have clearing, so you got to pick and choose your spots. But to go back on 2 fish and move them and catch one is pretty hard to argue with that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So this one, I'm going to break down this spot in the garage and kind of tell you guys what it is we're looking for. It's it's as classic a shield spot as you're going to find, where you get like that rocky point, weeds. There's actually a rock out here that we seldom ever fish. Surprisingly, fish don't really use it, but it's more of just a flat rock.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool spot. It's one of those like compound pieces of structure. Hunter had said he's been seeing fish more off the rock point. This fish was sitting right in the weeds. But it's that time we're going to get set up, make another run here, and see if we can find some more now that we're pretty much right on our moon underfoot. So we'll be right back. Today's Little Tykes Breakdown is brought to you by my buddy Kyle Fregis from Cabbage Dragon Media. And this is a spot Kyle knows well on Eagle Lake, and I just thought it'd be a little homage to him because he was just up here recently, and I know he's seen fish in this spot. So this spot, and today's breakdown is not exactly about the spot within the spot of where we caught the fish, but you hear me talk about in the video that you got to look for these complex spots on shield lakes and deep basin around it. That's always key. We're always looking for deep water, and everywhere we went, Hunter's like, yeah, I like this spot because it's shallow with deep water access. And a couple things stick out here. When you pull up to this spot, you can see weeds up in this bay and rocks on either point. Very natural for musky guys to gravitate to that spot. This rock out here, and you hear us talk about it, that there's a submerged rock, but fish don't really use it. This rock out here is about 4 feet underwater. So unless you know it's there, you would drive right over it and never see it. And in a lot of cases, people that fish this piece of structure will fish that and never continue in here because you actually have to come in quite a ways to hit the weeds, and it feels like as soon as you get past this point, you're in deep water. So a lot of guys will fish that, and then they end there, they start there. For us, the key to a spot like this and finding these complex spots is finding this little wee shelf, that triangle of weeds inside there on a flat, that's in 6 to 8 feet of water, and in this case, up by shore, this is 3 feet deep, kind of a rocky, shelfy shore. Doesn't look like a lot, but it's always key to find those spots. And when you can find a spot that has a rock way on the outside, weeds in behind it. Here's a quick clip of a fish David and I caught quite a few years ago on a completely different lake, but sets up almost identical. There's a rock that comes out, it's out of water, but it's all weeds in behind it, and we fish it exactly the same as we would fish this on Eagle Lake. So back to this example here, we like to follow that same boat path, but then roll in, go across that rock, and then roll around, and that gives us cast at all of these points of the weeds. And if we don't see a fish by then, lots of times we'll roll right around the inside of it and cast back out to it. So you're always trying to hit those little pockets within the weeds. It's not about hitting the outside edges. It's about trying to cover the whole thing. If we don't see fish inside the weeds, we will take a couple casts off the rock. But in this case, that rock, that's not the key piece of the structure. So the big takeaway on a spot like this is find those complex structures. You hear so many guys talk about it. But for you guys coming up to Canada, look on your mapping, look at Google Earth, find spots that look complex. The more complex, the better in most cases, especially if it's got deep water access. Well, Hunter, we got through a day. It took us a bit to get out together again, but we managed to put a couple in the boat, figured out a little bit of a pattern, and making the call to go back on those fish
Was key.
Yeah, proved huge. Without going back on those fish, I don't think we've seen another fish after that.
Nope. That was our last fish of the day.
Yeah, the weather completely changed. The wind kind of switched around about 30 degrees, and we got different weather patterns. So clearly making the call, and I got to hand it to Hunter. That was his call to go back on those fish because they were hot, and we probably should have had both of them. We had shots at both of them.
Yep.
But that's kind of how that goes. But always knowing, and like we had talked about in the boat, knowing when to either pound a spot or go back on a hot fish is key. Yeah. And for a lake like Eagle, how do you pick how much you pound a spot, Hunter? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. When you pound a spot, I mean, when that fish is consistently coming back, like you've already moved it and it's came in the 8 and wants to feed, you know, you throw that second or third cast out before you want to leave and it keeps coming, stay there. But when she's hot and she wants to go into the 8 and she falls off and she's still hot, leave that spot alone for an hour, 2 hours, come back to that spot. Generally, she's going to be in that same area.
Yeah.
If not, she's going to move. And generally, you got to crack at catching her.
Yeah, and that's basically what happened today. We went back on those 2 hot fish, got them to go, and the 1-8 turned out to be an awesome fish, and feels like we got our mojo back.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So cheers to that, Hunter. We'll try and get out a bit more here this fall. And I think it was the very first time that Hunter and I got out. Check out the video over here. And that was, I think, a 3-fish day. And that started a run that we had that year of consistent 3 fish, 2 fish every time we went out. So hopefully we can do the start of that and we'll get out some more this fall. But for now, from Temple Bay, Hunter and Glenn, 54 buses out of here. We'll catch you guys out on the water later.